Celeste Manno. A heartbreaking tale marked by obsession, institutional failure, and justice that arrived too late. Celeste Manno's promising future was derailed after she crossed paths with a troubled man who became dangerously fixated on her. Despite her repeated cries for protection, the system did not respond in time. What began as unsettling behavior escalated into relentless stalking and ultimately ended in a crime that shocked the nation. Celeste's life had been a blend of ambition, compassion, and optimism. Born on March 9, 1995, in Melbourne, Australia, she was the youngest member of a loving and tight-knit family. Raised by her mother Aggie DiMauro and stepfather Tony, Celeste grew up in a household that emphasized empathy and dedication. Her vibrant personality made her a beloved presence among her friends and colleagues. She shared a particularly strong bond with her older brother, Alessandro, a connection reflected in their constant laughter and unwavering support for one another. Celeste was academically gifted and pursued dual degrees in crime and psychology at RMIT University. Celeste's fascination with human behavior and her desire to create meaningful change in the world drew her to the fields of crime and psychology. Her friends often spoke of her deep compassion. She consistently went out of her way to support those around her, whether through practical help or simply by being a good listener. Her strong sense of justice and concern for mental health gave her a clear vision for the future she hoped to build. After graduating, Celeste began working at a call center for Serco, a company contracted by the government to manage services such as COVID-19 contact tracing during the pandemic. Her role involved assisting individuals seeking employment and navigating the complexities of government programs. Despite the challenges, Celeste approached her work with empathy and professionalism, offering much-needed support to those in difficult situations. Celeste often went beyond her job requirements, offering comfort and reassurance to people going through difficult times. Outside of work, she was known for her vibrant personality and creative spirit. Before I continue, I want to remind you that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let's move on with the video. She enjoyed painting, attending music events, and spending quality time with her friends, who frequently said she could brighten any space just by being in it. Her radiant smile and infectious laughter became trademarks of her warm and joyful presence. She also shared a deep, loving bond with her boyfriend, Ridsdale, whom she met through mutual friends. Their relationship was built on mutual support, shared dreams, and a strong emotional connection. Living in Mernda, a northern suburb of Melbourne, Celeste led a peaceful life filled with meaningful moments, family dinners, cozy evenings with Ridsdale, and weekends exploring the city with friends. Yet, behind this seemingly idyllic existence, an unsettling presence was slowly taking root, one that neither Celeste nor her loved ones could have anticipated. Luisako lived a life marked by instability, isolation, and worsening mental health struggles. Growing up in Melbourne within an Assyrian family, he often felt disconnected from his roots. Friends and neighbors described him as introverted and socially awkward, someone who found it difficult to form lasting relationships and frequently appeared out of step with those around him. While little is known about his early years outside of close circles, concerning patterns began to emerge during his youth. Though it was widely acknowledged that Sacco faced mental health challenges, specific details of any formal diagnoses remained unclear. Friends and colleagues noted his unpredictable behavior and discomfort in social settings, often feeling that he lacked the tools to navigate typical interpersonal dynamics. While many people experienced similar difficulties, Sacco's inability to build healthy connections became increasingly alarming. Professionally, he struggled to maintain stable employment, moving between short-term roles. It was during one of these stints that he encountered Celeste Manno, briefly crossing paths with her at Ciro, where she assisted him in his job search. What began as a brief, professional interaction quickly spiraled into a dangerous obsession for Sacco. Almost immediately after their short conversation, his infatuation with Celeste intensified. What initially seemed like a harmless crush soon became deeply troubling. Sacco began stalking Celeste online, sending her a growing number of unwanted and increasingly invasive messages. While his first texts appeared friendly and casual, they quickly turned into a flood of persistent and unwelcome communication. Celeste, trying to handle the situation respectfully, gave short replies at first, but it soon became clear that his interest was far from normal or appropriate. Eventually, Celeste blocked him on social media, hoping that would put an end to his pursuit. But instead of backing off, Sacco's obsession deepened. He created new accounts to get around her blocks and continued to bombard her with unwanted messages. His behavior became even more disturbing as he began treating Celeste not as a person with boundaries, but as something he felt entitled to. The situation escalated beyond the digital realm. Sacco started appearing near her home and workplace, making those around her increasingly fearful and uneasy. That wasn't just the behavior of someone who had been turned down for a girl. It was the result of greater psychological problems that hadn't been dealt with for too long. Even though it was clear that Sacco's behavior was getting worse and more dangerous, he had no plans to stop. If Sacco's friends and family knew what he was doing, they either didn't realize how bad his obsession was or couldn't do anything about it. His world became smaller as his obsession with Celeste took over more of his thoughts and actions, and his life kept falling apart quietly. What started out as a short meeting at a call center turned into a dangerous build-up to something much worse very quickly. Celeste Manno hoped that the scary part of her relationship would end when she blocked Sacco on social media. But Sacco's obsession grew stronger, and he started acting in a more dangerous way. Celeste's life became a daily battle for safety and peace of mind, as what started as a flood of unwanted messages turned into a full-on campaign of abuse. Celeste blocked Sacco on social media, so she started making new ones. Every time Celeste was able to close one, a new one would pop up. His texts became more and more random, going from declarations of love to angry rants when he didn't hear back. Sacco's words went from being just annoying to being dangerous. He would talk about how angry he was that no one was responding to his messages and how his anger grew with each one that wasn't. Celeste was constantly on edge because of the constant cyberbullying. Sacco's obsession wasn't just in the virtual world, though. He started showing up near Celeste's house in Mernda and watching from afar. Friends and family saw that her worry was getting worse. She told them about the stalking and how uneasy she was, but she felt like she couldn't do anything about it. It seemed like a dream. How could a short business conversation have turned into such a strong obsession? Celeste tried to get things under control by calling the cops about Sacco's behavior. She showed proof that he was harassing her by showing screenshots of the texts and information about when he showed up near her house. But the laws that were in place at the time about stalking didn't fully protect people. The authorities knew about the harassment, but it was hard for them to do anything about it because they weren't immediately facing physical threats. Sacco was a bother, but she wasn't yet a clear threat. Celeste kept going even though things went wrong. She asked for intervention orders and kept writing down everything that happened, hoping that a paper trail would finally make the police act. But as the days went by, the stalking got worse. Celeste tried to set legal limits, but that didn't stop Sacco from becoming more daring. His actions showed that he was crazy and sure that his obsession with Celeste was okay, and even returned in his twisted mind. The mental toll it took on Celeste was huge. Friends remembered how her lively spirit started to fade as the stress mounted. She became very careful, changing her habits and always looking over her shoulder when she left the house. Her family, especially her mother Aggie, felt the stress too. They shared Celeste's fear, but couldn't do anything to protect her. As of late 2020, Sacco's bullying had become very bad. He was fed up with stalking people online or watching from afar. His messages were filled with veiled threats and violent fantasies that made them sound like he had bad motives. Celeste became more and more desperate for safety as she became aware of the possible danger. But the system that was meant to keep her safe kept failing. Sacco was now completely obsessed with Celeste. He couldn't take his mind off of her, and the line between being in love and wanting to hurt her had almost vanished. Celeste's life was no longer her own. It was dominated by the constant threat of a man whose obsession had turned into a deadly resolve. At that time, Victoria's rule said that police could not do much until they had concrete, immediate threats or proof of physical harm. The cops couldn't do much about the harassment, even though Celeste kept records of it, and there was a clear pattern. They said they knew about the reports, but that Sacco's behavior didn't meet the legal standard for harsher action because there weren't any direct physical threats or acts of violence. Celeste asked for an intervention order in the hopes that it would finally put up a formal wall between her and Sarko. It was irritating that the process was so slow, though. Sarko didn't seem to care about the intervention order because she continued to message her through new accounts and hang out near her house. Each violation was recorded, but the authorities didn't do much about it. The law saw stalking as a less serious crime because it didn't see the pattern of behavior as a sign of violence to come. Celeste and her family felt alone because the system did nothing. Aggie, Celeste's mother, spoke out more and more about the lack of support. She accompanied Celeste to police officers and pushed for stronger action. They were afraid that Sarko's behavior would get worse if nothing was done right away, but every time they tried to sound the alarm, they ran into legal and bureaucratic problems. Even though there were clear warning signs, the system didn't understand how dangerous the threat was. Police records and court documents echo Celeste's cries for help, but nothing is done about it. The sad reality was that there was plenty of proof, the messages, the stalking, and the repeated violations, but it wasn't enough to get the help that could have saved her life. Early in the morning on November 16, 2020, it was still dark in Mernda, a quiet area north of Melbourne. The Manno family was asleep and didn't know that the night would end in an unimaginable disaster. The obsession with Louis Sarko had been getting worse for weeks, but nothing could have prepared Celeste's family for what was about to happen. At 4:10 a.m., Louis Sarko came up to the Manno house with a single, terrifying goal. With a kitchen knife in his hand, he walked the familiar streets with a frightening determination. He had carefully planned this moment, driven by his rising anger and delusion. He no longer cared about the formal barriers Celeste had worked so hard to set up. He had gone from bothering people to hurting them. When Sarko got to the back of the Manno house, he found a window that led to Celeste's bedroom on the first floor. The neighborhood was quiet and didn't try to stop him as he took down the fly screen and quietly broke in. Being either asleep or just waking up, Celeste was taken off guard. Her home, which used to be a safe place for her to go when Sarko was following her, had been violently broken into. Inside, chaos broke out. Sarko struck Celeste very violently and stabbed her several times. The exact details of the fight are still not clear, but the violence happened quickly and without mercy. Celeste's screams broke through the quiet of early morning and woke up her family. The sound scared her mother, Aggie, and stepfather, Tony. When they got there, they saw something horrible that no parent should ever see. When they got to Celeste's room, Sarko had already left, leaving behind the damage he had caused. Even though they tried very hard, they were unable to save Celeste because she was seriously hurt. The attack came on too quickly and the cuts were too bad. While they called for help, Aggie's cries could be heard throughout the house, but Celeste died before the rescuers could get there. The Manno home turned into a crime scene as dawn broke over Myrna. It didn't take long for the police to come and start looking into what happened. Even the most experienced police officers were shocked by how violent the crime was. When people woke up, they heard the flashing lights of emergency vehicles. Their normally calm neighborhood had been changed by an unimaginable act of violence. What Celeste's family went through was unbearable. Aggie had worked hard to keep her daughter safe from Sarko's bullying, but now she was so sad that words could not describe it. All the people who knew Celeste felt terrible when they realized that the system had not kept her safe. Her boyfriend, friends, and coworkers were shocked and couldn't understand how such a smart and kind young woman could be killed so brutally. At the same time, Sarko's flight did not last long. He drove away from the scene of the attack, but his mind was falling apart. In less than an hour, he drove himself to the local Mernda police station, where he was badly hurt and covered in blood. Sarko slammed the doors of the station and admitted to killing the man. His mood went back and forth between anger and an unsettling calmness, as if the seriousness of what he had done hadn't fully hit him yet. He was arrested right away, and it wasn't long before the crime scene evidence and Sarko's own statement made it clear that he was guilty. But for Celeste's family and friends, Sarko's arrest didn't bring much comfort. The fact that he was in jail was a stark reminder that the system had all the tools it needed to stop this terrible event, but didn't act in time. The investigation moved quickly in the hours after Celeste Manno was killed. Both the brutality of the crime and the fact that Louis Sarko confessed right away made it clear who was guilty. However, the police were determined to find out everything that happened that horrible night and gather the proof they would need to bring justice. The cops found Seiko confused and covered in blood when he got to the murder station soon after the murder. He admits to killing Celeste in a long but clear confession. He was quickly arrested and taken to the station to be questioned further by police. Even though his confession was very important, police still needed to see actual proof from the crime scene to back up what he said. At the Manno home, forensic teams worked very hard. There were clear signs of breaking in at the window Seiko used to get into Celeste's bedroom. There was blood all over the walls and floor of the room, showing that there had been a fight. It was the result of a violent, planned attack. The weapon, a kitchen knife, was thrown away nearby, but police quickly found it. Seiko had taken his car to the police station after the murder, so investigators also looked at it. Inside, they found more proof that he was involved with the crime, such as blood spots and Celeste's personal belongings. His erratic behavior and jumbled statement were signs that he was mentally ill, but they didn't hide the fact that he was acting on purpose. Witness accounts from Celeste's family and friends made the case against Seiko even stronger. Her mother, Aggie, talked about the scary and frustrating months they went through while they tried to get help from the police. Neighbors also gave important clues by remembering Seiko's appearance near the Manno home in the weeks before the murder. These statements brought to light the flaws in the system that had let his behavior go on without stopping. Seiko's DNA was found at the crime scene, and his digital record, which included messages, social media posts, and search history, showed that he was even more obsessed with Celeste. By the time the investigation concluded, the case against Louis Seiko was overwhelming. The murder had been premeditated, fueled by months of unchecked obsession and multiple missed opportunities to intervene. Not long after his arrest, Seiko was formally charged with the murder of Celeste Manno. Following the legal proceedings, he pleaded guilty on February 29th. Justice Jane Dixon of the Supreme Court of Victoria sentenced Seiko to 36 years in prison, with the earliest possible release in October 2044, making parole unavailable until then. While serving his sentence at Melbourne's Ravenhall Correctional Centre, Seiko attempted to take his own life and was hospitalized in critical condition. This incident reignited serious concerns about his long-standing mental health struggles, both before and after the crime. As for what could have been done differently, questions remain. Could law enforcement have taken earlier action based on the stalking behavior? Might Celeste's family have considered measures like relocating or seeking protective intervention? These questions continue to weigh heavily in the aftermath. Moving on to the next case. Eva Morera Aloha. In Costa Rica, statistics show that at least 8 domestic violence victims were women, while 9 were men. In 2019 alone, 11 women lost their lives due to domestic abuse in the country. One of those women was Eva Morera Aloha, a 19-year-old single mother. Eva was an outspoken activist who condemned violence against women, often expressing her views passionately on social media. But tragically, on November 1st, 2019, she became a victim of the very abuse she had long been fighting against. A heartbreaking and deeply ironic turn of events. In Eva's case, the Costa Rican authorities acted swiftly and apprehended the suspect shortly after the crime. However, there had been numerous warnings and cries for help leading up to that day, opportunities that might have saved her life, but sadly weren't acted upon. Eva Morera Aloha was born in 2000, and it's in her home country that this tragic story unfolds. According to her parents and friends, Eva was kind-hearted and gentle, though little is publicly known about her early years. She was also known to be trusting, perhaps too much so. Her loved ones remember her as a sweet, innocent soul with a heart full of purity. Eva was highly active on social media, with Facebook being her preferred platform for expressing her thoughts and connecting with others. She often used it to voice her strong belief in gender equality and to advocate for women's rights. A feminist at heart, Eva consistently spoke out about the widespread issue of violence against women, particularly within Costa Rica. At the time of her death in 2019, she was a social work student at the Latin University of Costa Rica. On Facebook, Eva not only shared her views on gender-based violence, but also sought solutions to help end it. Compassionate and driven, she encouraged women facing abuse to seek support and wasn't afraid to step in personally to help those within her circle. Eva was deeply committed to raising awareness and taking action against all forms of violence toward women. Tragically, While she was fighting for change publicly, she was also silently experiencing the very kind of abuse she was working so hard to expose. What makes Eva's story even more heartbreaking is that she had been silently enduring this struggle for years, during which she experienced countless painful moments. Her ordeal began when she was just 13 years old. Eva was young, idealistic, and emotionally vulnerable, traits that made her especially susceptible in relationships. She often fell deeply and quickly for those she cared about, which is exactly what happened during her teenage years when she met Randall Oviedo. That relationship would become the longest and most impactful of her life. Eva and Randall lived just 5 blocks apart, which meant they saw each other regularly and grew close quickly. At the time, Randall was 20 years old, while Eva was only 13, a deeply unsettling age gap, especially considering he was already an adult. Despite the obvious concerns, a romantic relationship developed between them. There were many warning signs surrounding Randall, but Eva either didn't see them or chose to overlook them. One of the biggest red flags was his connection to a criminal network. Randall was heavily involved with a gang that dealt and transported drugs in San Pablo, a nearby region of Costa Rica. His brother and several close associates were key players in the operation. Randall's role in the drug operation was to distribute the products to buyers, a shocking reality considering he was only 20 and already heavily involved in such a dangerous and illegal trade. Despite the risks, Randall appeared to take pride in what he was doing. It was clear that he wasn't a man guided by strong morals, yet neither he nor Eva seemed to recognize just how unhealthy their relationship had become. Eva, driven by emotion and loyalty, genuinely cared for Randall and wanted their relationship to succeed, which only deepens the tragedy of what ultimately unfolded. Given their significant age gap and Randall's troubling background, Eva's parents strongly disapproved of the relationship. Her family did everything they could to steer her away from him, warning her repeatedly that he was a harmful influence. But Eva, already emotionally attached, refused to listen to reason. This led to a turning point that made everything even more complicated. Shortly after she began dating Randall, Eva discovered she was pregnant. She was only 15 years old at the time. The situation was deeply alarming, not only because of her young age, but also because Randall, as an adult, should have known better and acted more responsibly. Instead, he made choices that put Eva in an incredibly vulnerable position. Whether or not Eva consented to their relationship, the reality remains that Randall had a long history of poor decisions, and his relationship with her was no exception. He was known to be reckless, dangerous, and emotionally detached. His intentions with Eva seemed selfish from the start. He wanted control, and he pushed until she gave in. It's disturbing to think about the harm he caused her. Over time, Randall subjected Eva to emotional, physical, and psychological abuse, leaving her feeling helpless and trapped in a situation she saw no escape from. Eva felt completely stuck. Despite knowing Randall wasn't good for her, leaving him didn't seem like an option. His volatile and threatening behavior made the idea of walking away terrifying, and it's likely she feared the consequences of even trying to end the relationship. But then, things began to shift. Eva was given a second chance when Costa Rican authorities uncovered Randall's involvement in serious criminal activity. While his gang wasn't massive, it was still engaging in illegal operations. And with that exposure, Randall and his associates were finally at risk of facing real legal consequences. Fortunately, justice did catch up with Randall. In early 2016, he, along with his brother and 3 close associates, was arrested for drug trafficking. Around the same time, Eva was nearing the end of her pregnancy. Becoming a young mother was already overwhelming, but doing so while the father of her child was behind bars made it even more challenging. In mid-2016, Eva gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and despite the pain surrounding her, she was determined to create something good in her life. One might hope that the birth of his son would inspire Randall to change, to become a better person, but that never happened. Instead of offering support or showing remorse, Randall called Eva from prison shortly after the birth, not to check on her or their child, but to lash out. He was aggressive and vulgar during the call, leaving Eva shaken and frightened. That phone call marked a turning point. Her focus had shifted entirely to her baby and building a new life. And in that moment, she began to truly disconnect from Randall. The illusion of love started to fade. She finally recognized that Randall had never been good for her, especially after enduring so much mistreatment, even while she was pregnant. Looking back, the warning signs had been there all along. But Eva had been too in love, too hopeful, and too young to see the reality clearly. Randall had isolated her from loved ones and physically harmed her whenever she tried to assert herself. It was a cycle of abuse that she had finally begun to break free from. That's how controlling he was that Eva couldn't even see her parents, whom she missed very much. Randall was arrested and sent to jail, which gave Eva a chance to start over and take back control of her life. But Randall, being the liar he was, tried to control Eva even while she was in jail. Randall would call Eva from jail all the time to try to get her to marry him again. Eva stood her ground though. She spent all of her time studying and taking care of her baby. She even broke up with Randall to start dating someone else. But things were not at all good. Randall had no idea that Eva had moved on with her life and started dating someone new. Someone from his family who wasn't in jail told him about this. The brother said he saw Eva with another guy. When Randall heard this, he got angry because he realized he could no longer control her. He had lost both his girlfriend and his son. It might have seemed like Eva's new relationship was better than her old one, but it wasn't. Even her current partner hurt and abused her, which is why Eva went to the National Institute for Women for help. This is basically a place where women can go to get professional help and report being abused. Hopefully, someone will help them get out of the bad situation they're in. Talk to professionals, and even a lawyer about how to keep herself safe from someone she was dating who was violent. Eva was in a bad situation, but a lot of men and women are in the same situation all the time. If you fell in love with the wrong person once, you should be damn sure not to do it again. But this kind of behavior often turns into a routine, a cycle that never ends. A lot of people go in the wrong direction because they feel like they keep falling for the same kind of person, which is true. But the victim isn't to blame. For lack of a better word, this way of thinking, this attraction, is so easy to get stuck in that it feels like it's attached to your DNA and becomes a part of who you are. You have no idea how to change this way of thinking. This is why so many people start to blame themselves, but that never works out and is a really scary way to look at things. Eva was lucky because she knew there was a way out. She did a great job of recognizing how dangerous the road she was on and finding a professional who could help her get away. At this point in her life, Eva chose to support the feminist movement and fight for women's rights. She did this by posting her very moving thoughts on Facebook. She also joined a lot of these campaigns and events to raise awareness. At one of them, she was seen holding a sign that said, "In my family, there's no room for hate." With her son, Eva felt stronger than ever. So she went to the family court in Costa Rica and got an order to protect her from her ex-partner Randall. Not even a simple piece of paper could help though, because evil was closing in on Eva quickly, and she was about to see the worst thing anyone could ever see. Remember how Randall was supposed to spend 6 years in prison for drug-related charges? Strangely enough, he was let out of jail after 3 years of good behavior. It's likely that you guessed that Randall was always following Eva around, trying to get her to get back together with him and letting him see his son on the day he was born, even though he didn't want to. I don't know what else will make your blood boil besides that. Even though Eva didn't want to get back together with Randall, she did want their child to have a healthy family unit. Due to her desire to do what was right, Eva made regular trips to Randall's house to try to keep things as normal as possible without raising Randall's dreams. It was made clear over and over again by Eva that the only reason they were meeting was so Randall could see his son. Randall didn't back down though. It was because he was always trying to get Eva back that she had to get an order of protection against him. Now it's November 1st, 2019. Eva got herself and her son ready to meet Randall at his house. It was just another day for her. His parents were also in the house at that time, but they were on the upper floor while Eva and Randall were downstairs. It's also important to remember that Randall had another daughter from a past relationship. Remember this point, we'll come back to it. Since we last talked, Eva had been letting Randall meet his son every couple of months. On November 1st, Eva and her 3-year-old son went to Randall's house to meet him and let him spend time with their son. But Randall had other, much worse plans for that day. Randall kept bothering her and saying that they should get back together soon after Eva got there. Now it's easy to see why Eva was tired of hearing Randall say nothing. She knew that Randall only wanted to control her, and the fact that they were back together gave him something else to control. Randall's repeated attempts to persuade Eva made her angry, so it wasn't a surprise that they got into a fight. It got very angry, which is never a good sign. Right now, only Eva and Randall know what really happened, so it's not clear what caused things to suddenly get worse. But quickly, things got very bad. During their fight, Randall pulled out a gun and pointed it at Eva, who was facing away from him and had no idea what was going on. He then fired twice. Even though the attack on Eva was bad, we must remember that there were kids in this room. Randall's son from his first marriage and Eva's son. Both of them saw the crime happen. Because these kids were only 3 and 5 years old, it's possible that they will both remember this moment for the rest of their lives. The fact that their father did something so horrible makes it even worse. Eva was on the floor, fighting for her life after being shot twice in the head. Luckily, Randall's parents heard the noise and the loud gunshots and called the police right away. People in the area also heard the shots and called the cops. Luckily, the cops got there quickly, and Randall's parents wasted no time in blaming their son. When it came to getting the upper hand, they knew Randall was sneaky, mean, and violent, and he wasn't afraid to do something so horrible. Randall was caught right away by the cops as he tried to get away, while emergency services rushed to Eva's aid. It was very important to get Eva to the hospital quickly because her heart rate was very low. She was put in an ambulance right away and taken to a nearby hospital. But when they got there, they were sad to see that Eva, 19, had already died from her injuries. It's just too much with this whole thing. After Eva's sudden and tragic death, the cops had to do something even more heartbreaking. They had to tell Eva's family. The tragic attack on Eva happened just 5 blocks away from where her parents were at home when they got a call from the cops. Alina, Eva's mother, remembers this scene very well. When she heard Eva's name from the cops, she thought time had stopped. She was called right away to the scene. There were police cars and crime scene tape all around the house, and it was a terrible scene. Alina was stunned into quiet when a police officer asked her what Eva was wearing when she left the house. Because she didn't want to jump to conclusions, she replied and confirmed what her daughter was wearing. At that very moment, the cops told the mothers the worst news they could ever hear. Alina was told by the cops that Eva had been beaten up by her ex-partner who said, quote, "Ma'am, we wish we could tell you it's not your daughter, but it is." The parents of Eva had their whole world turned upside down in one night. Randall's parents were very helpful because they helped the cops find the gun that was used on Eva. It was clear that Randall had it illegally. It was found stuck in a brick wall behind the house, and the cops took it right away as proof. It wasn't long after Randall was arrested that it became clear that he had a very troubled past and had been involved in crimes like simple and aggravated robbery for a number of years before he was caught running a drug-dealing ring. It shows that Randall was a threat to society from the start and had been a thief for a long time. Don't forget that some of these acts happened when he was a teenager. This man was pure evil, but thank goodness his rule of terror was almost over. The service for Eva was held on November 3rd, 2019, a Sunday. Eva was buried by her parents, friends, and other people who loved her spirit and creative energy. Eva's death was making headlines across the country, and people were shocked and upset by it. Carlos Alvarado, the president of Costa Rica, also said something about Eva's sad death. He said, "I am very saddened by the killing of Eva and all the other women who have been hurt." To give you some history, Costa Rica has had a lot of violent incidents and murders of women. These are all caused by gender-based violence, which is a problem in their whole society. Eva's parents now have care of her son because of her sad death. They are giving him all the love and attention that Eva would have wanted to give him in her life. Sadly, this young man will have to live without his mother and father and will always remember how his father pointed the gun at his mother without her knowing it. That must have been very scary and upsetting for a child to see. I have no idea what this poor young man is going to go through. There is no way to heal from this kind of pain. There is no amount of treatment that can erase what this little boy saw that night. 2 years after Randall killed Eva, in an attack in July 2021, the trial began. Everyone was looking forward to this hearing because it was the only way to get Eva justice and give her family peace. Along with witness statements, the prosecution showed proof that Eva and Randall were abused in their relationship. They emphasized that Randall was violent towards Eva and planned to kill her on the day of the crime. The defense for Randall said, that he killed Eva because he was jealous and lost it when he saw her on a private video call with another man on the day of the crime. This is such a ridiculous defense claim. Sometimes I wonder if his defense team really believed the case from the start, or if they were just making things up to make sure this man went to prison. The jurors thought about it for a while and then found Randall guilty. That's how long he could have been in jail, 35 years. Because of that, it's possible that this man will be freed one day and still have a long life ahead of him. Eva's family, on the other hand, has a hurt that will never heal. They had no idea that their daughter would be taken away from them so quickly and in such a mean way. Eva fought for the rights of women and against violence against women. However, she got caught in the same web and sadly died, even though she did everything she could to stay safe. The Costa Rican government says that ending AB against women is the most important thing for the whole country. But these are only words until something is done with them. It will take some time to see if they're really ready to change. The terrible thing that happened to Eva on November 1st, 2019 could have been avoided. If the person who did this hadn't been let out of jail so soon on such serious charges, and if Eva's pleas for help had been heard, she might still be alive and well today, working to make the world a better place for women. Making the choice to leave in a relationship or stop being abused is easier said than done. There is always a way out, though. It's not okay to make fun of or hurt someone because of their gender. And if we say over and over that the world needs to be a better place, then our actions and goals need to match those, no matter their gender, race, or culture. There are a lot of female cases on true crime cases, which is why I've said it before and will say it again. Because 8 out of 10 victims of domestic abuse in places like this are women. In fact, 80% of those who responded affirmatively highlight just how widespread the issue is. More awareness is urgently needed, and action must follow. For people like us, who may not have the power to change the system directly, it starts with watching out for those we care about. Take concerns seriously when someone says they've been targeted, harassed, or made to feel unsafe. I personally know people who have been stalked, touched inappropriately, or worse. And while I may not fully believe every accusation, it's important not to dismiss them outright. I won't go into the specific details of these events, because it's not my place to share. What matters is that the perpetrators were caught swiftly and are no longer a threat. This is the level of urgency and seriousness every case deserves. Everyone has the right to feel safe in this world. Moving on to the next case. Gloria Gary. A woman named Gloria Gary vanished under mysterious circumstances from her own home. Although the person responsible was quickly apprehended, he claimed he had left her body inside the house. This left one pressing question: what truly happened to Gloria? Elsewhere, a young man driving a red Honda along a rural highway in northern Utah noticed his fuel gauge dipping dangerously low. With no gas stations nearby and no money to refuel, he pulled over onto the shoulder and shut off the engine. Sitting in the car, uncertain about his next move, he began contemplating his limited options. At the same time, a driver heading in the opposite direction spotted the stationary Honda. Seeing a car stopped in such a remote location struck him as odd. With nothing around but open fields and distant farms, he hesitated to approach, but still felt something was off. Choosing caution, he contacted the local police to report the vehicle and requested that an officer check in, just in case someone needed help. A responding officer arrived at the location and spotted the vehicle pulled over on the shoulder. As per standard procedure, he radioed the dispatcher to run the license plate and identify the car's registered owner. He then exited his patrol vehicle and walked steadily toward the red Honda. As he got closer, the car door opened and a young man stepped out, holding an empty gas can. Although he was legally an adult, he looked significantly younger than his actual age. When asked what had happened, the young man explained that he had run out of gas and was hoping someone would pass by and share some fuel for free. During the conversation, a dispatch message came through with crucial information. The red Honda was registered to a missing person, 49-year-old Gloria Gary, who had been reported missing several days earlier in a completely different state. The young man in possession of the vehicle was not the registered owner, raising immediate suspicions. He was taken into custody and transported to the station for questioning, where he was identified as 22-year-old Kyle Alexander Jepson. During the interview, investigators uncovered a shocking detail. Gloria Gary hadn't actually vanished. She was still inside her home. This startling revelation directly contradicted her family's claims, as they had thoroughly searched every room and storage space without finding any sign of her. Gloria was officially reported missing on January 5, 2017, after being unreachable for several days. On January 3rd, she left work around 1 p.m., stopped by a nearby pizzeria for a meal, picked up a pizza to take home, and drove back in her red Honda. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. Gloria, an IT analyst based in Urbandale, failed to report to work on January 4th. Her coworkers initially assumed she had overslept, an unusual occurrence for someone as dependable as Gloria. But as the day wore on and she remained unreachable, concern began to grow. That same evening, she was supposed to have dinner with her father and sister. When she didn't show up or answer her phone, the family figured her plans had changed at the last minute. Still, it was uncharacteristic of Gloria not to notify them. When she missed work again on January 5th, her employer reached out to one of her sisters to ask if she knew where Gloria was. It soon became clear that Gloria had been completely out of contact for 2 full days. She hadn't reached out to family, friends, or coworkers, an immediate red flag. Gloria was known for her structured, consistent lifestyle. She lived alone, had no children, and followed a routine that rarely changed. Certain evenings were spent at her father's home, while others were reserved for casual outings at a local pizzeria with friends. Any deviation from this schedule was unusual and always communicated in advance. Her sudden silence deeply concerned her family. Gloria was responsible and caring, someone who would never disappear without letting someone know if she were sick or facing an emergency. Their worry intensified when calls to her phone began going straight to voicemail. Gloria's family, including her father, 2 sisters, and a brother, were all deeply shaken. Her nieces and nephews adored her, and neighbors described her as kind, soft-spoken, and gracious. She was respected for her gentle personality and was known to avoid conflict or drawing attention to herself. Having never been involved in any kind of trouble, Gloria's unexplained absence felt both troubling and completely out of character. Gloria's life centered around her deep love for romance and mystery novels, which she often bought in large quantities and read during her free time. Although she was typically quiet and reserved, her bright red Honda suggested a hidden spark of boldness that many wouldn't have expected. When she suddenly disappeared, one of her sisters asked her brother-in-law to act as the family's point of contact. He reached out to the police, stressing that it was completely unlike Gloria to go anywhere without informing her loved ones. Her sisters thoroughly searched her home for any signs or clues, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Her car was also gone. A heavy sense of fear set in, and Gloria was officially reported missing. Authorities released a public alert, asking anyone with information on the 49-year-old Des Moines, Iowa resident to come forward. Gloria was described as a white woman, 5 feet 5 inches tall, with black hair, brown eyes, and weighing approximately 110 pounds. She wore thin-frame glasses and was last seen dressed in a long dark sweater and pants. The alert also included a description of her bright red Honda, which was likely to be easily noticed on the road. In the meantime, the Gary family did everything they could to locate Gloria. Though they had no solid leads, they turned to both social and traditional media. They handed out flyers with her picture and even set up a dedicated account to collect tips from people who might be hesitant to contact law enforcement directly. While holding on to hope, they also braced themselves for the worst. Their determination paid off when Gloria's recognizable red Honda was spotted just a few days later in southern Utah, in an area called Park. At around 12:45 p.m., 2 local police officers noticed the car parked outside a 24-hour store during their routine patrol. After running the plates, they discovered the vehicle belonged to a missing person and quickly returned to investigate. Unfortunately, by the time they got back, the car had already left the scene. Refusing to give up, the officers examined the store's security footage. The video revealed a man driving Gloria's car. By carefully analyzing the footage, they were able to extract clearer images of the suspect, a white male adult with a distinctive mark on his arm, possibly a tattoo, glove, or a mix of both, depending on the camera angle. Authorities then shared the images on social media, asking the public for help in identifying the man as a person of interest in Gloria Gary's disappearance. The exact details of the man's identity remained unclear when Gloria's family saw the photo of the young suspect. They couldn't recognize him or determine any connection he might have had to their sister. What troubled them even more was Gloria's complete absence. There was no reason for her to be in Utah, as she had no known acquaintances there. It seemed likely the man had stolen her car, leaving the mystery of Gloria's whereabouts unanswered. The family's distress escalated, but their questions were soon addressed. On January 12, 2017, just a day after the photo was shared, police arrested the suspect. The young man had been caught on a rural highway after his ill-fated journey ended when he ran out of gas. A passing truck driver had noticed the red Honda parked on the roadside, and, sensing something was off, called the police. When an officer arrived at the scene, he observed condensation on the car windows, suggesting someone had been inside for a while. Part of the Honda's bright red body had been hastily spray-painted black, and the passenger side window was broken and patched with orange and silver duct tape. The officer radioed the license plate to dispatch before approaching the vehicle. At that moment, a young man stepped out of the car holding a gas can, apparently trying to appear nonchalant. His hands were stained with black paint, evidence of his attempt to disguise the vehicle. Hoping to deflect suspicion, he spun a story about running out of gas and having no money. When questioned about the broken passenger window, he offered an absurd explanation, claiming he had been sitting in the car in a bad mood, swinging a machete at the dashboard and accidentally shattered the window. The officer found the story implausible, suspecting it was concocted on the spot. The young man assured the officer he was unarmed, but a precautionary search confirmed this. He was then placed in the patrol car. Meanwhile, the officer received a dispatch update confirming the Honda was registered to a missing woman from Des Moines, Iowa. When asked who owned the car, the suspect initially claimed it belonged to his aunt, but failed to provide her name. Realizing his lies were futile, he eventually confessed to stealing the car, explaining that he had taken it from a driveway in Des Moines. Following his arrest, Utah state investigators secured a warrant to search the Honda for additional evidence, hoping it would provide more answers about Gloria's mysterious disappearance. Police found numerous items in the red Honda, suggesting the young man had planned to live on the road for some time. Among the belongings were a small camping tent, 3 toothbrushes, men's clothing, 9 pairs of socks, a blanket, a large set of brushes, 6 cans of spray paint, duct tape, and a tarp that had been removed. From the passenger door, once law enforcement identified the 22-year-old suspect as Kyle Alexander Jepson and read him his rights, his behavior became erratic. He wavered between agreeing to talk without an attorney and refusing to speak altogether. His nervousness was evident, and for good reason. In Iowa, there was an outstanding warrant for Kyle's arrest on charges of burglary. Kyle, however, claimed he was hearing about the warrant for the first time, though this wasn't surprising since he had fled the state. The Utah officer who arrested him decided to tread carefully, casually asking if Kyle had seen the red Honda's owner, Gloria Gary, since a missing person report had been filed about her days earlier. What Kyle said next stunned the officer. He admitted to having seen Gloria in her home, but then abruptly fell silent, refusing to answer further questions. After a moment, Kyle confessed that this was his first arrest and that he didn't know how to act or what to reveal. Gathering his thoughts, he finally delivered a shocking statement. Gloria was still in her house, or rather, her lifeless body was. He admitted to taking her life. The Utah officer, who had initially responded to a routine call about a car parked on the roadside, was unprepared for such a chilling confession. Looking at Kyle, he found it hard to believe this young, seemingly harmless man was capable of such an act. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the officer immediately contacted detectives in Des Moines who were leading the investigation into Gloria Gary's disappearance. During questioning, Kyle provided a detailed confession, which was as horrifying as it was random. He told investigators he had not planned to kill anyone that day, nor had he specifically targeted Gloria or her home. His actions seemed unplanned and impulsive, making the crime all the more senseless and tragic. On January 3, 2017, Kyle Jepson was walking through the Merle Hay area when he impulsively decided to break into a random house. Without any specific reason, he chose a property and entered, waiting inside for its occupants to return. Kyle didn't consider who might walk through the door, whether it could be someone who would overpower him. He simply hid and waited. When Gloria Gary came home carrying a pizza box, she had no idea someone was in her house. Kyle sprang from his hiding spot, attacked her, and knocked her to the floor. Wrapping his hands around her neck, he squeezed with all his strength until she went limp and quiet. Initially, Kyle thought she had fainted, but he soon realized she wasn't breathing. After ensuring Gloria was unresponsive, Kyle violated her body. According to his confession, Kyle claimed he felt detached from his actions as if he were observing himself from the outside. However, he admitted to feeling a sense of control during the crime, describing it as an almost surreal experience devoid of rational thought. Instead of fleeing, Kyle stayed in Gloria's home after the murder. He rationalized that imprisonment was too severe a punishment for him and decided to bide his time while considering his next move. Over the following hours, he showered, watched TV, played games on Gloria's phone, and even flipped through her books. He sent numerous messages and photos on Snapchat to his friends, though it's unclear what he shared. While some friends expressed concern, it's uncertain if they knew about the crime or simply noticed something off in Kyle's demeanor or messages. Before leaving Gloria's house, Kyle stole $200, her phone, and her red Honda, using the car to drive to another state. His confession led to his immediate arrest and detention at Toole County Detention Center in Utah, where he awaited extradition to Iowa. However, one baffling question remained. If Kyle had left Gloria's body in her home, where was it? Her family had searched the house multiple times, inspecting every room, but found no trace of her. They had reported her missing, and police had also visited her residence at the start of their investigation, thoroughly examining the property, but finding nothing out of the ordinary. At the time of Gloria's disappearance, detectives lacked a search warrant, which limited their ability to thoroughly investigate her residence. Legal restrictions confined them to visually inspecting the premises with permission from her family. They couldn't open doors, access the attic, descend into the basement, or search closets and drawers. Though Gloria had been missing for 9 days and Kyle claimed her body was inside, the initial walkthrough yielded no findings. After Kyle's confession, authorities secured a warrant to legally search the home in detail. When the legal procedures were finalized, detectives returned to Gloria's house and began an exhaustive room-by-room search, including the attic and basement. The process was challenging due to Gloria's hoarding tendencies, which made navigating the space difficult. Eventually, they discovered a body hidden inside. To confirm it was Gloria, the remains were sent for an autopsy, which tragically validated the family's fears. Authorities did not disclose why the body had gone unnoticed earlier, stating only that it had been well hidden due to the home's unconventional conditions. Out of respect for privacy, they withheld specific details about the body's location. Des Moines, translating to City of Monks, serves as Iowa's commercial, financial, and transportation hub, with a population just over 200,000. Until 2017, it was considered a relatively safe city. However, that year marked a troubling shift. On January 1st alone, 3 fatal incidents occurred, and by year's end, the city had experienced a record-breaking number of violent crimes resulting in deaths, a level of violence unseen since 1978. Though shootings and stabbings had happened before, Gloria's neighborhood in Merle Hay was known for its safety. Her tragic story shattered the community's sense of security, prompting many residents to install home security systems. As investigators delved into Kyle Jepsen's history, it was revealed that his actions in Gloria's case weren't entirely out of nowhere. Just 5 days before his attack on Gloria, troubling behavior had begun to emerge. On December 29, 2016, Kyle Jepsen broke into the home of Alicia Taylor, a woman living on Hall Comp Avenue. According to the police report, Alicia returned from work around 8:30 p.m. to a shocking sight. A young man standing in her kitchen wearing her undergarments, a bra and panties, and a woman's wig. The intruder had eaten the dinner she had prepared earlier and drank the remaining wine from her refrigerator. Alicia was understandably terrified, but managed to maintain her composure. Instead of panicking, she yelled at the strange young man to leave her house immediately and never return. To her surprise, the intruder obeyed. He quickly changed back into his own clothes, dropped the women's garments on the floor, and fled. Before leaving, Alicia got a clear look at him and recognized the burglar. As her neighbor's son, Kyle Jepsen, She watched through the window as he removed the wig outside, then immediately called the police to report the break-in. Although Kyle had not stolen anything, Alicia noticed her lighter fluid had been moved. Given the recent reports of house fires in the neighborhood, this discovery deeply unsettled her. Concerned for her family's safety, she filed a formal report. Police issued an arrest warrant for Kyle on charges of breaking and entering, but they were unable to locate him. By this time, he had already begun evading law enforcement. Shortly after the incident, Alicia decided to move out of state with her children. Learning about Gloria Gary's death just days after the break-in reinforced her fear of remaining in Des Moines. Following the discovery of Gloria's body, Kyle Jepsen was charged with first-degree felony robbery and burglary. In addition, he faced prior charges of second-degree burglary for the break-in at Alicia's home, resulting in a $1 million cash bail. This case represents two profound tragedies. The first is the senseless and violent death of Gloria Gary, a modest woman who lived a peaceful life and had no enemies. The second is the heartbreak of Kyle Jepsen's parents, who lost their son in a devastating way. It is unimaginable to be in their position, to raise a child with pride, joy, and hope, only to one day learn that this same child, their source of pride and unconditional love, had taken another person's life. For Kyle's parents, this revelation meant a lifetime of unanswered questions, guilt, and sorrow. Why had things gone so wrong? At what point did Kyle's sweet demeanor transform into the darkness that led to such unspeakable acts? When did thoughts of harming a woman take root in his mind? Kyle had once worked at a pub just 10 minutes from Gloria Gary's home. His employer had praised him as a diligent worker, and Kyle had formed friendly relationships with his coworkers. However, after leaving the job, he became increasingly withdrawn, eventually cutting ties with friends and disappearing from sight. When Gloria's family was distributing flyers with her photo, they asked the pub staff to place one in a visible location. A server attached it to the pub's front window. This seemingly routine gesture led to shocking revelations. First, Gloria's family was devastated to learn that the man who had taken their loved one's life had worked at that very pub. Second, the staff was horrified to discover that their former coworker was responsible for the death of the woman whose photo they had displayed. In September 2017, Kyle entered into a plea agreement, a process that took about a month due to the intimate motives behind his crimes against Alicia Taylor and Gloria Gary. Gloria's elderly father chose not to attend the court proceedings, unwilling to be in the same room as the man who had senselessly ended his daughter's life. After extensive legal proceedings, Kyle Alexander Jepsen pleaded guilty to the attack on Gloria Gary. He was sentenced to a maximum of 50 years in prison for her murder, with an additional 10 years for the burglary of Alicia Taylor's home. The judge ruled that these sentences would be served consecutively. Kyle would need to serve at least 35 years before becoming eligible for parole. During the trial, the 22-year-old suspect, who looked more like a boy than a man, tried to justify his actions. He claimed that voices or demons in his head had taken control of him during the crime. Overwhelmed with emotion, he broke down in tears, struggling to say anything further in his own defense. However, there was no evidence to support the presence of any mental illness. Psychological assessments confirmed that Kyle was fully aware of his actions and understood their consequences. The court ultimately found justice had been served, yet one disturbing mystery remained. How had Gloria Gary's body gone unnoticed in her home for 9 days? While police chose not to reveal this detail publicly, one of Gloria's relatives disclosed it during an interview. Gloria had been living with a hoarding disorder, clinically known as Diogenes syndrome, a psychiatric condition that presents in multiple forms. Some individuals collect stray animals without the means to properly care for them, leading to overcrowded, unhealthy environments. Others, obsessed with saving money, amass broken objects, waste, and useless junk until their homes become virtually uninhabitable. A third type, often motivated by a need for emotional or intellectual stimulation, accumulates books, newspapers, and magazines, which slowly overtake their living spaces. Gloria fell into the third category of hoarders and had been living alone for many years. At 49, she found comfort in romance and mystery novels. She often bought books in large quantities, read them cover to cover, and arranged them neatly on her shelves. As the shelves filled up, The books began to spill onto windowsills, furniture, and eventually covered the floors. Gloria couldn't bring herself to let go of any book she had read, and over time, her home was completely overtaken by them. In a heartbreaking twist, those very books became the site of her final resting place. After ending Gloria's life, the young man concealed her body beneath one of the many towering stacks of books scattered around the house. Since such piles were typical in her cluttered home, her family members didn't suspect anything was out of the ordinary during their early searches. Despite her quirks, Gloria was known for her kindness and warmth, and was dearly loved by her close friends. She didn't deserve the tragic end she suffered at the hands of a selfish and reckless young man. Moving on to the next case. Jennifer Rothell. When one list was uncovered during the investigation into a missing woman, it raised serious concerns. To an outsider, it might seem harmless, just a list. But when the contents were linked to the disappearance of a pregnant woman named Jennifer Rothell, it became a crucial piece of evidence in a case that started as a standard missing persons report. Jennifer Rothwell's heartbreaking story is steeped in betrayal, cold indifference, and devastating consequences. At the heart of it all lies a disturbing list that revealed a glimpse into a deeply troubled and selfish mind. Jennifer Elizabeth von Hausen was born on November 20th, 1990, in Overland Park, Kansas, to her parents, Robin and Mark von Hausen. She had two siblings, a brother named William and a sister named Marissa. Jennifer attended Park Hill High School in Kansas City, Missouri, before going on to study chemical engineering at the University of Missouri in Columbia. Jennifer is fondly remembered by her friends and family for her warm and radiant personality. She was smart, kind-hearted, and gentle, with a special love for spending time with those closest to her, especially during the holidays. Jennifer loved to travel and enjoyed playing group games, always bringing energy and joy wherever she went. Her vibrant spirit made her naturally sociable, and she left a meaningful impact on everyone she met. During her time at university, she crossed paths with someone who would become a central part of her life. In 2013, she met Beau Rothell, a fellow chemical engineering student at the University of Missouri, who was assigned as her lab partner. Their chemistry was instant, and it marked the start of a deep relationship. They went on dates, adopted a cat together, and within 2 years, Beau knew Jennifer was the one. He proposed, and on September 26, 2015, they tied the knot. At that time, Jennifer worked as a process engineer at DuPont's Chesterfield office in St. Louis, while Beau was employed at Ambitech Engineering. To those looking in from the outside, their life appeared picture-perfect. Both were advancing in their careers, enjoying a seemingly happy marriage, and surrounded by loving families and friends. After settling into married life, they began trying to start a family. But this path came with challenges. Jennifer had been diagnosed with endometriosis, a condition that made conception difficult. Despite the challenges, Jennifer and Beau remained hopeful, and in 2019, their patience was rewarded. Jennifer took a pregnancy test that confirmed the news they had been dreaming of. She was expecting. Jennifer was overjoyed. Becoming a mother had always been one of her deepest desires, and sharing that journey with Beau made it all the more meaningful. But heartbreak struck just 6 weeks into her pregnancy. Jennifer's life, and that of her unborn child, was tragically taken in a brutal and unimaginable way. She was last seen on November 11, 2019, at the couple's home on North Winds Drive in central St. Louis County, Missouri. It was a bitterly cold, snowy morning, and Jennifer never arrived at work. Beau told authorities that they had spent the previous evening watching television together before heading to bed. He claimed that he left for work the next morning as usual, but when he returned home later that day, Jennifer was gone. After several hours passed with no word from her, Beau said he tried calling her multiple times. When she still hadn't responded, he finally reported her missing. Authorities launched an investigation right away, as Jennifer's sudden disappearance was deeply alarming and completely out of character. She wasn't the type to disappear without a trace, and the fact that she was pregnant only intensified the concern. Was she in trouble? Had she fallen ill, been caught in the snowstorm, or worse? Jennifer's family, the von Hausens, were consumed with fear, desperate for answers and terrified for her safety. Beau also turned to social media in a show of concern, posting an emotional plea for the public's help in locating Jennifer. His words painted the picture of a distraught husband desperate for answers. He joined community-led search efforts, walking alongside volunteers in the snow-covered neighborhoods. But despite the growing urgency, no promising leads emerged. Then, later that same evening, a discovery added to the alarm. Jennifer's 2011 Hyundai Sonata was found abandoned. Inside the car, police located her phone, but Jennifer herself was nowhere to be found. The discovery was chilling. How could she have vanished without her phone or car, especially amid freezing temperatures? Investigators were no longer dealing with a simple missing person case. Something was very wrong. Jennifer's family, gripped by panic and dread, announced a $25,000 reward in hopes that someone would come forward with vital information. Meanwhile, police intensified their efforts, narrowing their focus to the last place Jennifer had been seen alive, her own home. When they approached Beau about searching the residence he shared with Jennifer, they were met with a startling reaction. He refused to allow them inside and immediately retained legal counsel. To the investigators, this response was not just uncooperative, it was suspicious. Their instincts told them they were no longer searching for a missing woman. They were looking for evidence of a crime. Authorities swiftly moved to secure a search warrant for both the couple's home and Beau's vehicle, determined to uncover the truth hidden behind closed doors. This marked a crucial turning point in the investigation, revealing deeply disturbing clues. When officers searched the couple's trash, they uncovered empty bleach bottles, cleaning supplies, gloves, paper towels, and stained rags. These items alone raised major suspicions, but it didn't stop there. When police examined Beau's car, they were hit with the overpowering scent of bleach, a clear indication that someone had attempted to sanitize the vehicle thoroughly. Shortly after, a search warrant was granted, and on November 13th, investigators entered the home. In the basement, they found wet carpet soaked with bleach and blood, clear evidence of foul play. A fan was directed at the spot, and windows were wide open despite the bitter cold, pointing to an urgent attempt to dry the area quickly and eliminate traces of a crime. Adding to the horror, detectives found a large hole in the basement wall, as if an object, or possibly a person, had been violently slammed against it. These findings confirmed their worst fears. Something brutal had occurred in that basement. Beau was immediately arrested and charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence. By November 14th, the case officially transitioned from a missing persons report to a homicide investigation. That same day, Beau faced additional charges for tampering with evidence after surveillance footage surfaced, showing him purchasing bleach and cleaning products from a nearby store the night before Jennifer vanished. To further distance himself from the crime, Beau had used a gift card to make the purchase, making it harder to trace. On November 15th, Beau was formally charged with second-degree murder. Meanwhile, the search for Jennifer, or her remains, intensified, with the Special Response Unit, Metro Air Support Unit, detectives, police, and volunteers joining forces to search nearby areas. After a week of searching, on November 18th, around 11:15 p.m., investigators made a discovery that would change the case forever. The worst fear of all had become a grim reality. The events that transpired in the basement of the Rothell home ultimately led to the tragic loss of Jennifer's life. Her lifeless, unclothed body was found along Highway 61, near Troy, Missouri, nearly 45 miles northwest of her home with Beau. The body was partially covered with leaves and twigs, curled into a fetal position, and had a large plastic bag over her head. After being transported for identification, it was confirmed the body belonged to 28-year-old Jennifer Rothell. The heartbreak of her death was compounded by the fact that she was pregnant at the time. Not only was Jennifer discarded and left to die on the side of the road, but the unborn child she had so eagerly awaited also shared her tragic fate. When Jennifer's family learned of her death, it was as though their world had collapsed. Jennifer, who had been so excited about starting a new chapter with her husband, would never get to hold her child. The pain of losing their daughter was unbearable. But when they discovered that Beau, her husband, who had promised to love and protect her, had been arrested for her murder, their hearts were shattered even further. The grief they felt was unimaginable. The autopsy revealed Jennifer's cause of death was blunt force trauma. Her head injury was so severe that it resembled the kind of damage typically seen in high-speed car accidents. This revelation was a shock to the police as well. A man who had actively participated in searches for his missing wife publicly pleaded for her safe return, all the while knowing she was already gone. This was not the behavior of an innocent person. Moreover, he had clearly played a role in her tragic end. But what exactly had happened? Why did Beau purchase cleaning supplies and bleach? Was it just a tragic accident? Why did he resist letting investigators search his home and hire a lawyer? The police needed answers, and fortunately, Beau's phone revealed a secret that gave them clear insight into his motive. Beau's phone records revealed that he had been texting someone, a woman, not Jennifer. While the woman's identity was not made public, the content of the messages made it evident that Beau had been unfaithful to his wife long before her tragic death. It's unclear if the woman was from Beau's workplace or elsewhere, but the affair was undeniable. The texts revealed that Beau had been contemplating leaving Jennifer and starting a new life with his mistress. The messages between the two were laced with the secrecy and desire typical of an affair, all while Jennifer remained completely unaware. Further exchanges showed that Beau's affair had reached a critical point. When Jennifer told him she was pregnant, it placed Beau at a crossroads. He could either end the relationship with Jennifer and pursue a life with his mistress, or he could stay with his wife and raise their child. But Beau didn't want to continue with Jennifer. The investigators found Jennifer's internet search history, revealing that she had visited forums asking questions like, "What to do if your husband is upset that you're pregnant?" It became glaringly clear to the police and everyone else that Beau didn't want to continue his life with Jennifer. When she shared the news about being pregnant, it was obvious that he wasn't happy about it. Sure, pregnancy can be challenging for both partners, but Jennifer and Beau had previously agreed on starting a family, at least before Beau cheated. So he had no legitimate reason to be upset about the pregnancy. They had been trying to conceive, yet when it actually happened, acted as if it were a surprise. It simply didn't make sense. Messages between Beau and his mistress revealed how unhappy he was about the pregnancy. One text read, "I'm in panic mode. Jennifer took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. I want to be with you instead. I have no clue what to do. Believe me, this is not what I want. I feel trapped." These texts highlighted the type of husband Beau was. One particular message alarmed the police immediately. It was an outline Beau had sent to his mistress, listing 3 possible options for his situation. The first option was to end the affair and part ways. The second option was to confess the affair to Jennifer and ask for a divorce. The third was to wait out the pregnancy, not reveal the affair, and leave Jennifer if she miscarried or if something else happened. What doesn't make sense is why Beau didn't simply leave Jennifer if he felt that unhappy. While an affair is never justifiable, if you stretch your mind, his actions could almost seem explainable in some twisted way. But to continue the affair for 4 years, why not leave his wife and be with the person he truly wanted? He was already cheating, the trust was already shattered. It couldn't get much worse, but Beau's actions were beyond comprehension. He wasn't just a coward who couldn't face Jennifer and her rightful anger when the affair was exposed. He was so deeply invested in the affair that he didn't care about his unborn child's fate. In fact, to him, a miscarriage might have been the best outcome. If that doesn't make your stomach turn, I don't know what will. Jennifer's murder trial took place in mid-2022, where Beau displayed a mix of stoic and emotional behavior. The prosecution aimed to prove that the murder was premeditated, hoping for a heavier sentence for such a brutal crime. Meanwhile, the defense argued that Beau's actions were a result of an accident. According to investigators, Beau had grown tired of his life with Jennifer, and when she revealed her pregnancy, he saw the baby, which both of them had a role in creating, as a hindrance to his plans for a new life. The prosecution supported this claim with a shocking piece of evidence: a pros and cons list found in Beau's notebook at work, which was handed over by his boss. This wasn't a typical list. It detailed Beau's thoughts on leaving Jennifer and starting over. On the pros side, Beau wrote things like a fresh start, better intimacy, and more respect. On the cons side, he listed having to move, financial strain, and disappointing his family. The list showed that Beau's focus was entirely on how his life would be impacted, with no consideration for the feelings of others. It was a clear example of his narcissism. The prosecution argued that Jennifer and her baby stood in the way of Beau's ideal life, and he decided to eliminate them, leading to the brutal attack which investigators believed was carried out with a mallet. On the other hand, the defense admitted that Beau had killed Jennifer, but argued it wasn't premeditated. They claimed it was an outburst of passion and anger. According to the defense, Beau had been having an affair, but when Jennifer got pregnant, he was ready to end the affair and commit to his wife. They suggested that on November 11th, Beau confessed the affair to Jennifer, but didn't reveal the identity of the woman. This caused Jennifer to become enraged, leading to a heated argument. At one point, Jennifer allegedly told Beau that she was also cheating and that the baby wasn't his. This was the moment that pushed Beau over the edge, literally. In a fit of rage, he demanded to know if the baby was even his. In a horrifying turn of events, Beau attacked Jennifer with a mallet, and as she stumbled toward the garage door, he struck her again, fatally ending her life. It was only after the violent outburst that Beau snapped out of his anger and realized the gravity of what he had done. He then loaded Jennifer's lifeless body into his car and drove it 45 miles away. As for his behavior afterward, including actively participating in the searches for Jennifer, the defense claimed he was just maintaining the facade of normalcy, a claim that seemed unbelievable. The defense repeatedly argued that Beau was overcome with guilt from his affair and that he genuinely wanted to start a family with Jennifer. However, this claim is hard to believe. A paternity test conducted after Jennifer's death revealed that Beau was indeed the father of the baby, disproving any notion of infidelity on Jennifer's part. Her phone history also showed no signs of unfaithfulness. It's difficult to comprehend the defense's baseless argument. Jennifer had been loyal to her husband, and none of her actions had jeopardized their marriage. When all this evidence came to light in court, broke down in tears, as though his emotions could undo the horrors he'd caused and bring Jennifer and their baby back to life. Beau's actions were tragic and senseless. If he truly killed his wife out of rage over a false accusation of infidelity, one without any proof, it becomes even more irrational. Beau had no right to take the lives of his wife and unborn child based on a baseless claim, especially when he himself had been the one to jeopardize the marriage with his affair. The role of Beau's mistress in the crime remains unclear. Since she wasn't named publicly or present at the trial, it's safe to assume she was not involved. However, she was aware that Beau was married and they had discussed possible future scenarios. Whether or not she knew that Beau intended to kill Jennifer is uncertain, but it remains unsettling. After much deliberation, in April 2022, the jury reached their verdict. 31-year-old Beau Rothell was found guilty of murdering his wife, Jennifer. The sentencing took place on July 8, 2022, when Beau was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 4 years for charges related to body abandonment and evidence tampering, all of which will be served concurrently. After the verdict, Beau addressed Jennifer's family, offering a statement in which he claimed he thought about Jennifer every day and that she was his best friend. But these words were nothing but hollow lies. A true friend doesn't betray, lie to, or murder their best friend. Jennifer's family not only lost their daughter, a loving, strong, and bright woman, but also their unborn grandchild, all due to Beau's selfish actions. Jennifer's mother Robin spoke after the sentencing through a video call, expressing the immense loss. "We thought we would have more than 28 years with her. Gone are the moments of joy with friends and relatives. It's devastating to witness the families knowing they will never see their daughter again. A husband is meant to be a protector, a source of comfort and peace, yet betrayed that bond from the start." Jennifer's case draws comparisons to others like Chris Watts and Scott Peterson, men who, like Beau, killed their wives and unborn children to be with another woman. What makes these cases even more haunting is the fact that these men actively joined the search efforts for their wives, after having already taken their lives. Their actions reveal a level of cruelty that's difficult to grasp. Taking a spouse's life is horrifying in itself, but doing so while she is pregnant adds an even more chilling layer. It's unthinkable that someone could be so devoid of empathy as to end not only one life, but two, one of which had barely begun. This case is devastating on many levels. The idea that the person you trust the most, your own husband, could be behind such a calculated and evil act is almost impossible to comprehend. There are countless ways to leave a relationship without resorting to violence. Yet individuals like Beau chose the most brutal option, all while keeping up the facade of a devoted partner. He chose to end his marriage in bloodshed, seemingly to preserve his image. If there's any small comfort for Jennifer's loved ones, it's that Beau didn't succeed in crafting the life he wanted. Instead, he now faces a lifetime behind bars, forever marked as a cheating murderer. Jennifer's family holds on to this measure of justice as they continue to cherish the memory of their beloved daughter, whose spirit lives on in their hearts. Moving on to the next case. Laura Aerson. In this video, we explore a chilling case where love turned toxic and betrayal led to a devastating murder. This is the tragic and disturbing true story of Laura Aerson. Parenthood teaches valuable lessons: compassion, responsibility, and sacrifice for others. Every parent hopes to provide the safest and healthiest life for their children. Things seem to be falling into place for Laura Aerson, a thriving businesswoman who was just weeks away from gaining full custody of her kids. But on the fateful day of July 13, 2011, Laura vanished without a trace. Had she really abandoned her children? She was so close to ending a difficult custody battle. Would she walk away from everything she fought for? Or had something terrible happened? Laura Jane Aerson was born on April 30, 1984, in Hastings, Michigan, to Roger and Brenda Aerson. As a child, she was cheerful, upbeat, and full of life. Her outgoing and joyful personality made her well-liked, and her family regularly attended Grace Fellowship Church. Laura had a kind, gentle nature. Not much is known about her early life, but in 1996, her seemingly stable family began to break apart. Her parents were in constant conflict, and the cracks in the family dynamic became increasingly clear. Laura's world changed when her parents divorced at the age of 12. The separation deeply affected her, leaving her emotionally unsettled from that point on. Divorce is something no child should have to endure, and Laura's experience underscores just how damaging it can be. After the split, Laura and her mother, Brenda, relocated to Iowa. She enrolled at Linville-Sully High School and later attended Kirkwood Community College, where she studied graphic design. Laura had a natural flair for creativity, with a talent for combining color, patterns, and digital art to express herself. Eventually, Laura sought a fresh start and moved to Kinston, North Carolina. There, she attended the J.Y. Monk Real Estate School and began working in marketing and graphic design. Through her work, she met new people and formed valuable connections. Two of her business partners, Siobhan Maffs and Heidi Schumacher, soon became her closest friends. For Laura, having long-term friendships meant everything. As someone who often felt isolated due to frequent moves during childhood, finding a tight-knit circle brought her joy and a sense of belonging. In March 2007, she met a man named Grant Hayes at a local restaurant, an encounter that would soon change the course of her life. Grant was born on April 30, 1979, in Raleigh, North Carolina. Interestingly, he and Laura shared the same birthday, which was one of the things that initially connected them. Not much is publicly known about Grant's early life, but it's clear he was deeply religious and musically gifted. He gained local recognition by performing at small venues like bars and restaurants. Grant had a charming personality and knew how to attract women. He and a girl named Emily became romantically involved at the age of 18, shortly after finishing high school. Their relationship escalated quickly, leading to marriage. However, the union was short-lived and eventually ended in divorce. This breakup had a profound impact on Grant, as Emily had been a major influence in his life and a source of inspiration for his music. The emotional fallout from the failed marriage marked a turning point for him. He was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. Though he was prescribed strong medications such as lithium, Grant eventually began abusing alcohol and later turned to even more dangerous substances. It became clear that Grant couldn't function without drugs. He was already heading down a destructive path, but his addiction to a synthetic hallucinogen made things significantly worse. His already egotistical and self-absorbed personality became cruel and controlling. Grant began experiencing delusions. He believed aliens were running the government and that he was some kind of chosen one. He even thought he'd need a rocket to survive the end of the world. He also rejected vaccines, convinced they caused autism. No doubt, that opinion would spark debate in the comments. Despite his deteriorating mental state and substance abuse, Grant's music career began to flourish, and he started landing more gigs in Raleigh. Around this time, he met Laura, On the surface, it seemed like things were going well for Grant, but behind closed doors, it was a much different story. Laura soon found herself dealing with his abusive and controlling behavior. Emotionally fragile to begin with, Laura became a target of Grant's manipulation. He physically and mentally abused her and repeatedly cheated on her. Struggling with her own insecurities, Laura endured far more than she should have. Grant even tried to isolate Laura from her loved ones, claiming her family and friends were a negative influence. He fit the mold of a textbook narcissist, obsessed with control and determined to dominate every aspect of Laura's life, from her actions to her social interactions. Despite all the red flags, Laura and Grant got married just 2 months after meeting. Coming from a troubled family background and a string of failed relationships, Laura was desperate to find her fairy tale ending. Unfortunately, she ended up with someone who only cared about himself. The fact that no one even knew Laura was dating shows just how deeply Grant had taken over her life. When her friend Heidi broke the news of Laura's marriage to those closest to her, they were stunned. Still, her friends stood by her, even though they knew it was a mistake. A few months later, Laura found out she was pregnant. While she was overjoyed, Grant's reaction was the opposite. He had no desire to become a father. The pregnancy only made his controlling and obsessive behavior worse. 9 months later, their son, Grant Jr., was born, and Laura's entire world began to revolve around him. To show how narcissistic he was even more, he gave his son his own name. Now, don't get me wrong, people do this all the time, and it's usually a sweet way to honor a father or grandpa. But in Grant's case, it was a sign of narcissism. No matter what, Laura loved her son very much. Meanwhile, was high, cheating on his child's mother and working so he didn't have time for his son. In the end, one of Grant's contacts told him about a job opening in the Virgin Islands. Grant was thrilled about the chance, even though it meant leaving his wife and baby son back in North Carolina. While I'm not sure if he found work, I am sure that he met someone who kept him busy. It was a woman, and her name was Amanda Perry Tucker. Amanda was a struggling actress and single mom. She had a few small parts in films and TV shows, like The Sopranos and The Stepford Wives, that weren't given to her. Grant liked Amanda right away, mostly because she was rich and had almost $200,000 in cash and $80,000 worth of jewelry, which could have been alimony from a previous marriage. While this was going on, Grant was completely broke when he met Amanda. They began dating right away, and Grant was finally able to rub it in Laura's face that he liked her. He cheated on Laura with Amanda in public and made fun of her a lot. But Grant had no idea what Laura would do next. She had finally had enough, and Grant thought that would never happen. Laura had enough and chose to make a stand. She told Grant that she was leaving him for good. Even Grant's ex-wife supported Laura and told her to leave him right away because they knew how controlling he was. But Laura found out she was expecting her second child. She chose to give Grant a second chance even though he didn't earn it. But in reality, this was possibly Grant's 9th or 10th chance. It shows how much Laura loved her kids and was always ready to put them first. Also, the fact that Laura was ready to do anything to avoid going through another divorce, even if it meant hurting her mental health, shows how badly her parents' split must have affected her. Laura, who was pregnant, made the smart choice to move to the Virgin Islands with Grant Jr. so she could be with her husband. Grant didn't like this at all, because she would have to watch him all the time. After some time, Laura's second boy, Gentle, was born. He was born with a lot of health problems, so his family had to be close to a better hospital to keep an eye on him. The Hayes family finally went back to North Carolina, which made Grant very angry. He said that Laura and the kids were to blame for everything because they made him lose good jobs and had to leave the Virgin Islands. They were to blame for everything. Amanda kept in touch with him the whole time. She even moved to New York and persuaded Grant to look into the business there. At this point, everyone knows that Grant only wanted to be with Amanda and not with Laura and his kids because he didn't want the duty. Grant went to New York in the end and loved it there. They had a lot of work to do and he was close to Amanda, so that seemed to be the most important thing. He even asked Laura if he could take Grant Jr. with him to a nappy shoot and said he would return Grant Jr. right away. Even though Laura wasn't sure at first, she let him go because she wanted the kids to get along well with their dad. She had no idea that Grant had other bad motives. Laura looked at Facebook out of worry when Grant didn't return Grant Jr. as promised. What she found shocked her. Let that sink in for a moment. Grant married Amanda in New York, and they were living together with Grant Jr. I can't even imagine how scared Laura must have been at that very moment. Laura was clearly upset, so she called Grant to talk to him about it. But she was about to find something even stranger. Laura was shocked when Grant told her that he and Laura were never officially married. When Laura looked at her marriage certificate to make sure, her suspicions turned into a nightmare. The paper did not have Grant's signature on it. If you thought this was bad, there's more. Amanda and Grant quickly asked for custody of Grant Jr., but Laura and Grant weren't married, so they didn't have a custody deal in place. As a result, lost custody of her 2 kids. Even better, Laura had no idea any of this was going on. Grant went to these meetings by himself and said that Laura wasn't a good mother because she was a full-time mom and didn't have a job or a house. The court gave Grant full custody of the kids without even hearing Laura's side of the story. It wasn't possible who would take their kids away from their mom. To be honest, a lot of these cases make me angry. To be honest, I get pretty emotional when I work on most of these movies. Hearing about what Grant did to Laura, on the other hand, made me feel sick. However, Grant did not understand that Laura was a strong person who would do anything to get her children back. Not long after that, she showed proof in court that Grant was cruel and a sociopath. The court ruled that both parents should get psychiatric evaluations because of these new facts. In the meantime, Laura could have the kids on the weekends and talk to them every day on the phone. That is, until Grant and Amanda, who was pregnant with his child at the time, destroyed this wonderful moment for Laura. They would often cut her off in the middle of a call, and she rarely had more than a few minutes a week to talk to her kids. Laura couldn't believe how upset and shocked she was. Heidi, her best friend, was still with her, and they talked about everything. Laura even told Heidi something very scary. If anything happened to her, it would be Grant's fault. This happened during the custody fight. No matter what the situation is, this is scary to hear. But do you remember the psychologist test the court ordered? Well, did a terrible job. He wasn't close to the kids, and they liked having Laura around more. Besides that, Laura was shown to be a caring mother who always looked out for her boys. Because of this, the court ordered a full review of Grant. Around the same time, on June 9, 2011, Amanda, Grant's new wife, gave birth to a girl named Lillian. In terms of custody, things were really interesting. The parents were given a 3-to-2 plan, which meant that one parent would have the kids for 3 days and the other would have them for 2 days. After that, they could switch days. But it's not a joke to say that Grant was about to lose it by this point. He became very irritated and angry. Very quickly, though, everything fell apart in a terrible way. In the evening of July 13, 2011, 1 month before the next custody hearing, Laura had a business meeting planned with Siobhan, her business partner and friend. She didn't call or show up, though. Siobhan thought it was odd, but she forgot about it because Laura had told her that she was meeting Grant and her boys at his flat on the same day. Cell phone records also showed that Laura texted Grant that she was on her way, but he didn't message her back. Anyway, 27-year-old Laura was officially reported missing by her family and friends on July 18th after not being seen or heard from for 5 days. When the police went to Laura's flat right away, they found it in a normal state. Laura also left her flat, but she never came back, as seen on CCTV video. With a search order, they went to Grant and Amanda's flat in Raleigh, which was almost 90 minutes away from Laura's. Right away, they knew something was very wrong. Not only were Grant and Amanda not there, but there was a strong smell of bleach when the police came in, which is never a good sign. The area was spotlessly clean, and police also noticed that some things were missing from the flat. A shower curtain, a hoover, and a few blankets were missing. The floor had bleach spots on it as well. There were also 2 horrible pieces of paper that the police found. The first one was a song called Man Killer that Grant was working on. The words of the song talked about a woman being brutally killed by being strangled. On the other piece of paper was a letter that Laura had written and signed. Grant and Laura had some kind of deal where Laura would give up care of her boys in exchange for $25,000. For anyone who knows Laura, this seems very strange right away. Her kids were her whole world, and she would never give them up for money. Also, the fight over custody had nothing to do with money. At least not for Laura. Her only real wish was to be with her children. Before it was too late, the cops knew they had to find Grant and Amanda. The cops watched footage from CCTV cameras and saw that Grant and Amanda were involved in a lot of things after July 13th. Amanda was seen at a nearby Chick-fil-A with her kids. At the same time, Grant went shopping early on July 14th at Walmart and Target in Raleigh. However, the things Grant bought were very scary. He bought trash bags, gloves, bleach, tape, a reciprocating saw, blades, and a lint roller. I don't know about you, but this makes me very suspicious. On the same day, Amanda called her daughter Shaw and told her to take the kids and watch them for a while. Then on July 16th, Grant bought more things at a nearby store. This time he bought a lot of ice and coolers. Soon after, he rented a U-Haul trailer and took Amanda, the two boys, and himself to Richmond, Texas to see Amanda's sister Karen Berry. They got there around July 19th. But it's interesting that Grant bought something else at a nearby Home Depot. He got 8 bottles of acid and heavy-duty gloves. With all of these clues, the cops were clearly worried, so they chose to go to Texas to talk to Karen, Amanda's sister. The fact that she spoke a lot shocked the police even more. Karen said that Grant and Amanda had asked to take her boat on the night of July 19th to go to Oyster Creek, a deep canal with lots of plants, murky water, and a lot of alligators. Karen and her son Sheldon Berry remembered the strange questions Grant and Amanda had asked, like if the alligators in Oyster Creek ate people, if wild hogs ate people, and if there were sharks in Texas that were hungry for blood. Karen and Sheldon thought that these questions came from people from the city who were visiting the country. The cops knew that Laura didn't have a good chance. The cops acted right away when they heard this. 3 groups were sent to Oyster Creek to look for proof, and 2 more groups went to Texas to look for CCTV cameras. Both groups found what they were looking for, but unfortunately, what the police were afraid of happened. After walking for hours through dark, dangerous water with lots of lily pads in Oyster Creek, police found, well, most of Laura. This is so sad and breaks my heart. What a cruel monster. She thought she was going to meet her kids, but instead she fell right into his hands and was completely dehumanized. This nasty man turned her into fish food. It was very hard to find out the official cause of death because her body was in such bad shape. But in the end, it was decided that she had either been strangled by hand or hit hard in the neck and died. Everything in Grant's so-called song is so horrible that it shows he planned to kill Laura. Chief Constable Brady, who was working on Laura's case, said it was the most gruesome scene he had seen in 30 years of work. The police were sure that Grant and Amanda were responsible for Laura's horrible death, and their suspicions were confirmed when, on July 20th, 2011, Laura's 2006 white Ford Focus was found parked in a strange way near Grant's apartment. The inside of the car was cleaned and the back of the car was damaged. It was also found that Amanda had dumped acid bottles near Karen's house on CCTV video. It had been 13 days since Laura went missing. On July 25th, 2011, Grant, 32, and Amanda, 39, were caught at Grant's parents' house in North Carolina and charged with killing Laura. Grant and Amanda were tried separately, and in the classic case of a criminal and a suspect, both of them turned on the other. Grant said that Laura came to Amanda's flat on July 13th and clearly threatened to take her daughter away, just like her boys were taken away from her. This made Amanda lash out and attack Laura, which killed her. It is said that Grant only helped get rid of Laura's body. On the other hand, Amanda's defense was based on the fact that Grant was cruel to her, but she didn't find out about Laura's death until they got to Texas. Amanda says that Laura was visiting Grant and her kids on July 13th and got into a fight with Grant. Laura then fell and hit her head, but Amanda wasn't there because she was in the other room with the kids. In any case, came in and told Amanda to leave with the kids while he called an ambulance because Laura was hurt pretty badly. Amanda went to Chick-fil-A as she was told to. When she got back, Laura was gone and Grant was in the living room. Amy told Grant that Laura was okay and didn't need an ambulance after all. Laura then went home. As soon as the couple got to Texas, told Amanda that Laura had actually died. Grant then made threats against Amanda to get her to help him get rid of Laura's body, which she did because she was scared of him. There was a lot of proof against both Grant and Amanda, even though they both said they weren't guilty. In the end, they were both found guilty and convicted. Grant was given a life term in prison without the chance of parole on September 16, 2013. That Grant didn't feel bad about hitting Laura and killing her without any reason is so creepy and disgusting. He was all smiles in court. He looked like he was getting ready for a trip or something because it was like nothing was wrong. There's something wrong with this man. After a few months, Amanda was given a 13 to 16-year prison term on February 19, 2014. The judge had a good reason for sentencing Amanda because she had a part in Laura's death. He said, "Based on what I know about the evidence, I think it's very likely and possible that Amanda Hayes could have saved Laura Aerson's life, but chose not to. In its place, she chose to help kill her." Amanda said she felt bad about what she did at the sentencing, but it could have just been her acting skills showing. She had every chance to stop Laura from being abused, but she didn't. But the prosecution wasn't even close to being done. Amanda was tried again in Texas for tampering with evidence and given an extra 20 years in jail. The question now was, how did the dangerous pair actually attack Laura and kill her? What was the reason? The police thought that Laura was tricked into going to Grant and Amanda's flat by saying she would get to meet her boys. People also think Grant lied to Laura when he said he would give her full control of their kids. It's clear that Laura would never have met Grant by herself, even if her friends had allowed her to. To see her kids was the only reason that made sense for her to drive 90 minutes from Kinston to meet Grant. It breaks my heart to think about how excited Laura was to meet her kids. She didn't know that Grant wasn't going to let her leave alive. But what about the letter that Laura wrote about giving Grant custody? It's believed that when Laura arrived at the apartment, Grant and Amanda restrained her and forced her to write and sign the message. Grant likely threatened her, saying she'd never see her sons again if she didn't comply. After the letter was written, Laura was fatally attacked. However, much of this remains speculation. We don't know the full truth. What we do know is that Grant appeared to be orchestrating everything in order to eliminate Laura and begin a new life with Amanda. But the situation only became more tragic from there. Amanda and Grant broke up in October 2014 after everything had unfolded. Grant was left feeling like all his scheming and cruelty had been in vain. Laura's two sons, Grant Jr. and Gentle, along with Amanda's daughter Lillian, are now being raised by Grant's parents. Unlike their son, his parents showed genuine love and care for the children. It's heartbreaking that the boys lost their mother so early, and even more so that it was their own father who took her away. Despite everything, Laura had remained close with her father, Roger, and her brother Jason, even after her parents' separation. Roger had always wished he could have given Laura a better life. Though his relationship with Laura's mother had been rocky, he was heartbroken knowing that Laura had ended up with a manipulative narcissist and never truly experienced real love. After enduring the pain of multiple failed marriages, losing his youngest daughter in such a tragic and devastating way was more than he could bear. Roger ran a full-time antique store, Collector's Corner shop, in the historic district of Lowell. He often imagined Laura taking on the role of marketing director for the shop, dreams that would never come to pass. Roger passed away on February 18, 2021, while trying to gain custody of Grant Jr. and Gentle. He was 75 years old. This case was filled with heartbreak. Laura had been a loving mother, daughter, and friend who adored her children deeply. She was vibrant and full of warmth, but the man she shared her life with ended it in a horrific way. Her story is a painful reminder of how crucial self-respect is. No matter how much you care for someone, never allow yourself to be mistreated. Don't become a prisoner in the name of love. It's never too soon to start over, but for Laura, it became too late. Moving on to the next case. Michael Vanzant. 36-year-old Michael Vanzant was last seen on March 5, 2016, at the American Junkie Gastro Pub located in Piper Plaza, Hermosa Beach, California. A father of three and a veteran of the Air Force, Michael was living in Lancaster at the time of his disappearance. That evening, he had gone out to meet friends to watch a UFC fight. He had rented a room at the Quality Inn on the 900 block of Aviation Boulevard. CCTV footage captured him standing in line at American Junkie with his friends around 10:15 p.m. Michael then left the line to find a bathroom and went into the neighboring establishment, a liquor store. He exited shortly after, but by then, his friends had left the queue and moved on to another bar. Subsequent footage showed Michael spending several hours searching for his friends, but eventually returning to the liquor store, where he bought an unknown item. Later, his brother Tyler revealed it was a bottle of whiskey. Tyler also mentioned that Michael's friends had tried to contact him throughout the night to inform him they had changed locations. However, Michael's phone was dead, and phone records confirmed it wasn't used at all during the evening. Friends had tried to contact him around 20 times during the night, and at one point, CCTV revealed that he was just 10 yards away from them, but they never seemed to find one another. Michael was last seen as 11:27 p.m. on CCTV when he walked northeast through the Mermaid Car Park. Early the next morning, his friends noticed that he hadn't returned to the hotel and his car hadn't moved, so they began calling local jails and hospitals thinking he was probably drunk somewhere. They filed a missing persons report the next day when he failed to show up for work at the Edwards Air Force Base, but little came of their efforts to find Michael. Investigators have noted that the rain and a lack of witnesses hampered the case. There was no evidence to say the father of three met with foul play or that he took his own life, although officers stated that accidental drowning was a possibility, especially as some reports note that he has been known to swim at night even after drinking. Michael's ex-wife, whom he was in the process of divorcing at the time, told the Daily Breeze in 2021 that though she hadn't been able to reach her estranged husband by phone that Monday morning, she had not been immediately alarmed until she discovered he hadn't shown up to work. She stated, "The details started to come in that nobody had seen or heard from him since that Saturday prior. So I instantly knew that something was wrong because that's not like him." Michael's son, Keaton, was 14 when his father vanished. He remembered feeling confused when he was told his father was missing, describing the day as very strange. Yet, he admits he still holds onto a small hope, saying it often feels like there's some chance his father is still out there and might come back, even if that might not be true. In a way, it feels like his father still exists somewhere, which makes the situation less unbearable, even if a reunion is unlikely. Over time, he has grown used to this reality. The family continues distributing flyers about Michael's disappearance, but no evidence has been found. While they hope for his return, they are moving forward with legally declaring him dead to settle his assets and finances for his children. Michael Vanzant disappeared from Hermosa Beach, California, on March 5, 2016. He is described as a white male with blonde hair and blue eyes, standing 6 feet tall. At the time of his disappearance, he weighed 190 pounds and wore a gray long-sleeve sweatshirt with blue jeans. Michael has several tattoos, including a tiger on his upper left arm, a Buddha on his back, and the name Keaton on his left calf. If you have any information about his disappearance, please contact the Hermosa Beach Police Department at 310-318-0360. Moving on to the next case. Rawi Jane Doe. At approximately 6:30 a.m. on the morning of March 26, 1887, four brothers heading to their jobs at the Felt Mills near Bloodgood's Pond in Clark, New Jersey, discovered the body of a young woman lying by the roadside. Dressed impeccably, Jane Doe had met a brutal end. Her lifeless body was found just a few hundred feet from the Central Avenue Bridge, which spans the Rahway River near Jefferson Avenue. When investigators arrived soon after, they had no idea this case would remain unsolved for years. The Rawi Jane Doe was described as an attractive woman in her early 20s with blue eyes and brown hair. She wore elegant attire, including a dark green cashmere dress trimmed with green feathers, yellow kid gloves, a black straw hat adorned with red velvet, and a black dotted veil and bonnet. Her fur cape had been torn and was lying beside her body. Local newspapers noted that her shoes were foreign-made and of high quality. She still wore her jewelry, which initially led officers to believe robbery was not the motive behind Jane Doe's gruesome death. A young woman dressed so finely surely must have had someone missing her, yet her case remains unsolved, and the Rawi Jane Doe's identity is still unknown. Although footprints were discovered in the mud near her body, they led investigators nowhere. The pool of blood beside her had frozen, and it was soon found that she was carrying a small satchel, an umbrella, and a basket of eggs. The basket held 9 eggs, though 3 were broken. Jane Doe's bag contained several items. Some of these were women's clothing, but other unidentified objects were believed to belong to a man. Nearby, across a fence, a small penknife with a turquoise handle was discovered and thought to be the murder weapon. Jane Doe's death had been brutal. Her throat was slashed from ear to ear, and the entire right side of her face was badly bruised from a severe beating. Even her hands were wounded. While no money was found on the young woman, it was reported that one pocket had been inspected by a bloody hand. This led to speculation that the perpetrator had cut themselves with the knife used on Jane Doe's throat. It's possible they stole her money. And since the jewelry was left behind, the attack was possibly opportunistic and hasty. She's estimated to have died several hours before her discovery. As the media reported extensively on the case, the police prepared Jane Doe's body for viewing. She was embalmed and redressed in clothing in which she was found so that her body could be viewed by the public and hopefully identified. Additionally, her photograph was taken and the images were widely circulated. As news of Jane Doe's demise spread, one witness, a grocery store owner named J.H. Brunt, came forward. He told the authorities that between 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. on the night of the 25th, his dog was acting strangely. Reportedly, the animal would look at his owner and dash off before coming back, looking at his owner again and dashing off again as if he expected his owner to follow. However, his owner assumed that he was chasing a cat and returns to bed. Another witness told the police that they'd seen a woman resembling Jane Doe getting off the nearby train at around 10 p.m. Neither of these statements propelled the investigation forward. According to an article from the Morning Post, one man visited Jane Doe's body in the days following her murder. He reportedly said that he knew the young woman, but promptly left town afterwards on an eastbound train after refusing to give his name. However, he returned to the city in the evening and spoke with both the mayor and the chief of police. Although what he told the authorities was never publicly disclosed, a similar incident involved a woman and a 14-year-old girl who came to view the body and claimed to recognize the clothes Jane Doe was wearing. However, the woman again refused to reveal her identity. Their connection to Jane Doe remains unclear, as does what happened to them afterward. Another potential lead was short-lived when a juryman identified the egg baskets the young woman carried. He said he had seen the same baskets over a month earlier at Baker's grocery store, where they were supposedly being repaired by Mrs. Baker. However, a store clerk denied this claim, and no further information came from this tip. Just a few months later, in June of 1887, the case saw another development. A man named Casper Schonbeck, who lived in Salem, Illinois, confessed to the crime. He was reportedly turned in by a man who claimed that Schonbeck had told him, "I did something bad in New Jersey, and it bothers me almost to death." After being put in jail, Schonbeck wrote his confession. He claimed that on March 13th, he and an acquaintance named John, who was apparently Swedish, lured a teenage girl around age 17 to the outskirts of town. They met the girl who Schonbeck claimed was named Clary on the side of the road. Here, John hit her with a club. Afterwards, Schonbeck cut her throat with a pocket knife. Despite the discrepancies in dates that Jane Doe was estimated to have died on March 25th, 12 days after Schonbeck supposedly killed her and the victim's ages, Clary was 17, while Jane Doe was in her early to mid-20s. He was sent to Rawi to be interrogated by their officers. It was here that authorities concluded Schonbeck's confession was false. It is unclear if they ever investigated Clary. It is possible that Schonbeck confessed to a separate murder. His confession was the first of many to be dismissed as a hoax over the next few years. The only other suspect in the case was a drifter who was described by the Morning Post as having a black eye and wearing torn and muddy clothing. He was also said to have had a nervous manner. However, it appears that he was eventually ruled out of the investigation. Some historians have speculated that a man named Francis Tumblety was perhaps responsible for the murder. Tumblety is thought by some to be the true name of Jack the Ripper, and he lived in New York City at the time of Jane Doe's demise, just 20 miles from the site of the crime. 2.5 weeks after she was found, Jane Doe's casket was taken to the First Presbyterian Church for services. 6 journalists from New York who were covering her case carried the casket. She was laid to rest in Rawi Cemetery. According to her Doe Network page, Jane Doe was buried separately from family plots because her virtue was considered uncertain. Despite a $250 reward being offered for any information that could help solve the case, Jane Doe has remained unidentified for 134 years since her death. Similarly, her murderer remains unknown. She is still sometimes referred to as the Unknown Woman, a tragic nickname that may never be forgotten. If you happen to have any information about Jane Doe's identity or her killer, you can contact the Rawi Police Department at 732-827-2200. Moving on to the next case. Noel Russo. On June 27, 1983, sheriff's deputies responded to a call in an unincorporated part of Rohnert Park, a moderately sized planned community located about 50 miles north of San Francisco, California. A 7-year-old boy had discovered a woman's body behind a real estate office near the intersection of Petaluma Hill Road and East Cotati Avenue. Upon arrival, officers found that the woman had been brutally beaten to death with lumber taken from a nearby woodpile. Evidence from the scene was collected and preserved for potential future use. The victim was soon identified as 37-year-old Noel Russo. Noel had last been seen 3 days earlier, on June 24, 1983. Friends reported that she had recently argued with her boyfriend and decided to stay with a friend in Santa Rosa, California. That evening, a friend dropped her off at Courthouse Square, where she planned to catch a Golden Gate Transit bus back to her apartment in Rohnert Park. After that, she vanished. Detectives began reconstructing the events of Noel's life in an effort to uncover what had happened. Noel Russo grew up in San Mateo County and gained local recognition in 1962 when she was crowned Miss Burlingame. At just 16 years old, she told the San Mateo Times that she aspired to be a model and loved dancing the twist. "I couldn't have been more surprised," she said with enthusiasm. "I never in the world thought I would win. I just entered to please my mother." The accompanying photo in the article captured Noel smiling brightly, holding a large bouquet of flowers. Over the following 2 decades, she experienced 2 marriages and divorces and became a mother to a son. At one point, she trained as a forest ranger in Colorado before eventually returning to the Bay Area. At the time of her death, Noel was enrolled at Santa Rosa Junior College and living in an apartment on Avram Avenue in Rohnert Park with her 18-year-old son. She had plans to move to Boys Hot Springs. Noel loved riding her bike around town. She was known to hitchhike, and friends worried that she was too trusting of strangers. Detectives believe Noel never boarded a bus back to Rohnert Park. It seemed she had encountered someone before it arrived. In the days after the slaying, investigators used a sketch artist to draw Noel in the clothes she was wearing on June 24, 1983, and circulated it in hopes of finding leads. Deputies and detectives collected a significant amount of evidence during the investigation, and numerous interviews were conducted. Detectives developed certain persons of interest over the years, but no arrests were made and the case went cold. The sheriff's office reopened the case in February 2010. For the next 12-plus years, detectives began to use DNA analysis technology, submitting several pieces of evidence to the Santa Clara County Crime Lab and the Serological Research Institute. Finally, in a press release, authorities announced that 65-year-old Alfredo Carretero Jr. was arrested on October 2, 2023. He was charged with taking Noel Russo's life. Deputy Rob Dillon said, "Russo's family has been notified of the arrest and would appreciate privacy." Carretero Jr. was one of the original persons of interest in the case, the sheriff's office said. He was 25 years old when the crime took place. He was positively identified as the man responsible for what happened to Noel based on DNA and other evidence. Carretero Jr. is detained in the Sonoma County, Maine adult detention facility without bail. Deputy Rob Dillon also said, throughout this investigation, detectives worked closely with the Sonoma County District Attorney's Office. The Sonoma County Sheriff's Office and Sonoma County District Attorney's Office are both dedicated to justice for victims, whether the case is new or old. The VCI unit continues to investigate many cold cases and relentlessly pursue justice for the victims of violent crime. Alfredo Carretero Jr. is currently slated to appear in court on October 18, 2023. It is not known yet if Noel knew him. Investigators are looking at the possibility that he could be one of her ex-boyfriends. Authorities have released little information about Carretero other than that he has prior convictions in Sonoma County in 1995 and 2001 for possessing stolen property and possessing illegal substances, respectively. Court records also show that he was involved in a domestic violence civil case in September 1985, about 2 years after Noel lost her life. A woman whose mother had been one of Noel Russo's closest friends shared memories of their time together in San Francisco. She recalled that the two enjoyed going out, visiting bars, and having fun like many others in the area. That was exactly what they were doing the night Noel disappeared. At some point during the evening, they split up. The woman noted that Noel might have been speaking with an ex-boyfriend, but didn't he believe he was the person she left with. That night, the two became separated, and when her mother couldn't reach Noel the following day, concern quickly grew. Tragically, Noel was soon found deceased. The discovery deeply affected her mother, leaving a lasting emotional impact. She kept a journal where she frequently wrote about her friend and the pain of her loss. "I think her eyes sparkled when she looked at her," the daughter said. "She was truly a beautiful person, and that is something that always came through in my mom's writing how much she cared for her. Losing her was devastating." Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing cold cases with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cold Case Mystique for more deep dives into cold case investigations. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any cases you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video, and remember, the search for truth never stops.